Would you sign a document that has great value, but you weren't able to read the entire thing? In this episode of the I Can't See You podcast, I'll talk about some real estate documents I had to sign when Liz wasn't around and I couldn't fully read it.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 103 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode, and I've got a few things to talk about. But before we really get into it, I do want to mention that this episode is brought to you by the White Cane Coffee Company. It's not that I'm getting any money from them, but I do want to support them. And now is a good time since people are looking for gifts for folks. If you would go to the White Cane Coffee website and make a purchase, that would be great. It would help out a small business obviously any small business is affected by the pandemic, and it would be great if you could help them out. It would also be great if you used my affiliate link, and that's ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. Now, I do say it's my affiliate link. It's actually the affiliate link of the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Yes, it's a mouthful. So any purchase you make using ican'tseeyou.com/coffee will give a small commission, 10%, to the Keystone chapter. And so that will help them out. And again, it's a tough time this year to raise funds for nonprofits. That would help the Keystone chapter. Obviously, it would also help the White Cane Coffee Company, which is run by a young lady who is blind named Erin. And she employs both blind and other disabled folks in the business. So it's a very good business. They have some great coffee. There's one called High Octane, which it is what it sounds like. It has double caffeine. So if you have heart palpitations, might not be the best choice. Try one of their decafs. And they have some other flavored coffees and things like that. So give White Cane Coffee Company a try. Again, ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. Remember, I Can't See You sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 letters long. ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. And you'll go right to the White Cane Coffee website and help a couple of organizations out that could really use your help. And I would really appreciate that. So a couple things I want to talk about today. First off, my fantasy football team, I lost again. Not surprising. And I thought for a while it was going to be at my own hand. And there's nothing that makes me feel worse than when, if I only played this guy, I would have won. Didn't happen this week. It was close because I have 3 quarterbacks. I have my main guy is Lamar Jackson from Baltimore, who was out for a couple of weeks with COVID. I was afraid to start him, even though it sounded like he might come off the list and play, which he did, and he did well, but not as well as my second quarterback, technically third, because my second quarterback is the one I played, Matt Ryan. He got me like 12 points. Had I played Baker Mayfield, I would have gotten 29 points. So the 17-point difference still would have left me about 5 or 6 points short of winning. So I end the regular season at 4 wins, 9 losses. I guess my big win was against last week's opponent, which was the Montreal Beavers, the defending champ. And he is into the playoffs. He is, and I'm not. Again. It's been brutal since I lost the championship game a couple of years ago. So it is what it is, but it has been fun, as I've mentioned, and I'm going to miss it. And they've talked about doing a fantasy hockey. I don't know that I could keep up with that. There's just games all the time. That's the beautiful thing about football. It's, basically the weekend, and you're not constantly having to update your lineup. So I will let you know, of course, if I do fantasy hockey, and I certainly don't know as much about hockey as I used to, and I certainly don't know the players like I used to. So we'll see about that. Over the last week, I did get a couple of emails from the breeder who we are getting Mushu from. And if you missed the name reveal, go back and check out episode 102 where I talk about that. But in the emails, one of them was to say that she got we sent a I forget what they call it, but basically we sent a chew toy over so that it would get the mother's scent. And hopefully, once we bring Mushu home, he is not as scared and missing her as much because her scent will be there, assuming assuming she or any of the other dogs in that litter don't chew the toy up before it gets here. So we'll see how that is. But she let me know that she received that. But we also got a video, and I'm going to try and post it on the show notes page of this website. And again, that'll be at ican'tseeyou.com/102, ICANTCU.com/102. And it's just that, the dogs were starting to walk around a little bit and starting to see and hear. They're roughly about, they're 2 weeks old now, or 3 weeks old now, I guess I should say. November 17th was the date they're born. Recording this on the 9th of December. So I'll try and post it. It's a nice video. There's just a whole bunch of puppies everywhere. So I'll put that up if I can. And again, I've been having issues, and that's one of the things that I'll touch on a little bit later in the podcast. But we're just so excited and so looking forward to having the dog. And, like I said, when we do get that dog, get ready for the snow, because it will come once we have to take the dog out several times per day. So check out the show notes for that video. And another thing I wanted to touch on, I am going to reformat the show just a little bit. I've mentioned in the past I do want to have more guests, and I know I said that, and I still haven't had anybody on. But I do have some feelers out for a couple of folks. So hopefully I will have, in the coming weeks, I will have a few folks on. Don't want to talk about who at this point, because I don't know who's going to say yes and who's going to say yes and then not actually come on, as I've had with a couple of people. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I am going to introduce each week, and I'm not going to start this week. I'll start it next week. Basically a tip for sighted folks when interacting with blind folks. And I've mentioned a whole bunch of them over the course of the 102 other episodes. And, the main thing is don't point and say it's right over there, because we have no idea what you're doing. But I'll have that, and I'll have some other things that are going to be changed. I have the intro and outro. I think I've got the wording worked out. I just have to get it recorded. My big hang-up has been music. And, the last time when I had the intro, for example, the one you heard at the beginning of this podcast, the person who did the voice work for that just, used some music she had. And, while I like it, I want something that will be more consistent. For example, the intro, the outro, as I mentioned before, a little bit of a 2 or 3 second or 4 second hit, so that when I do have folks on to do an interview, I can go right from me speaking. That sound would come on, that little bit of music, and then me speaking again, introducing the person who's on that week, as opposed to the way I do it now. I introduce them not while I'm with them, and then I go to the interview. So the first person in the interview you actually hear is the guest. So I don't want to do that anymore. I think it would just flow better if I did it, the other way. I know some other podcasts and obviously some, TV and radio shows do it that way, with the little bit of music. So I'm hoping to do it that way. So I'm looking around for music. I've been going to all the different royalty-free sites where you either purchase the music on its own, or you get a subscription where you can download a certain number of tracks per day or per week. So I just haven't found something that I really, really like that would fit both the intro, the outro, and this little bit of music, and maybe even a little something else if I do product reviews and things like that, which is another thing that I hope to do in the future. That would be more geared to blind folks, because obviously I can't see, as I mentioned last week with the microwave, I can't use it. I just can't use our microwave easily. I shouldn't say I can't use it. I can't use it easily. And again, I don't really have a huge need for the microwave other than maybe to warm something up. So it's not too big of a deal, but it's frustrating. Same thing with our stove here. And, so what I'm planning to do going forward, and again, this is going to be sometime as we move into 2021, I'm going to do reviews. I'm hoping on YouTube that will show, hey, this is a good thing for a blind person, that it's fairly easy to use, without much help from someone else. Or, hey, you need a lot of help from somebody else. And that's not what we're going for. Blind folks want to be as independent as we can. And I've been going back and forth with Harriet, who is the president of the Keystone chapter. And she reminded me last night that I have to send a payment we had talked about on our board call. I'm the treasurer of the Keystone chapter. And it's not something that I can do on my own because we don't have the chapter set up on QuickBooks or any other kind of accounting software. So when I need to write a check, and I need, or is in quotes because I don't write it, Liz writes it. So, Liz didn't sign up to be treasurer of the Keystone chapter. I signed up to be the treasurer. And it frustrates me that I have to ask her to do that. And of course, she's happy to do it, and she helps out in other ways with the Keystone chapter as well. I know we're going to be stuffing envelopes for a money drive, in the coming weeks, and we're getting about 1,000 letters and envelopes that we have to do, and she'll do them while we're watching TV and things like that. That's something that that she's okay with, and she said, "Hey, I'll help, sure." But being the treasurer, and I, look, I do all the other work because I do it in a spreadsheet and I keep track of everything that way. But it's frustrating to me that I have to ask her to do that. And and Harriet said, and Liz has been working a couple of days late this week. I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 9th. So, she doesn't have a lot of wake time when she's home. On the days she works late. She comes home, she makes dinner, and, we watch TV. Sometimes we get an hour in, sometimes an hour and a half. 9 times out of 10, by that second show, whether it's a half an hour or an hour, and sometimes even in the first show, she's out, laying on the couch watching. So, so there's not a lot of time. I don't want to have her come home from work. And it's bad enough that she does most of the cooking. I wouldn't say all of it, but 90% of it. There are on occasion that, either I'll do something or Jane will help out. Jane's busy with her work too. So, it's just something I want to be independent. I want to do I don't want to have to ask somebody if it's 2 a.m. and I say, oh, I have to write a check to so-and-so. I want to be able to do it. Same thing goes with, turning the oven on. I can't preheat the oven. There's a touch screen on it. So, and not only that, but I don't know that there's, and I guess there is, there's writing somewhere that says, where you have to touch. I mentioned our washer and dryers are similar. Now, our washer and dryers are supposed to be Wi-Fi enabled, so we just haven't investigated that enough to this point to take a look. So I hope to have some product reviews. Again, that's going to be more on the YouTube side. If they're good enough, and we don't know how good they're going to be, but if they're good enough, I may, convert them into just an audio file and put them up as a podcast. Problem is, the people I'm trying to reach on this podcast are folks who are sighted, and that would obviously be geared to folks who are not sighted. And more helpful to folks who are not sighted. Although I guess somebody who's sighted could be helping someone who is not sighted, find a microwave or a washer or, whatever. So I will have some tips. I will have some things like that with, product reviews and things like that. So I'm looking forward to getting involved with doing those. And, again, that'll come in the future. Same thing goes with, as I mentioned last week, and it's one of the things that I really want to talk about today. Email, as I've mentioned, I don't know how many podcasts I've mentioned this on, but email is not always 100% accessible. And when there are documents that are online besides email that are not accessible, also very frustrating to me. And I'll give you for instance, as I've mentioned, our condo just around the corner at the Briarcliff is available for sale. Within 4 days of putting it on the market, somebody signed an agreement of sale to buy it. And, if you've ever bought or sold property, you know that there are different milestones that have to be reached. There's X number of days for this to happen, Y number of days for this to happen, and with a condo, there's a couple, there's, an inspection that whether you have a condo or a house or whatever you have, the person sends an inspector through and says, okay, it needs this, it needs that, it's going to cost, could cost X number of dollars, and so they have 10 days to do that. We waived the 10-day when we bought the house to only 5 days. And then we had to, and we capped it at a certain amount. I don't remember what it was, but the inspector didn't find much wrong. And I hope he was right because, since we've been here, we've had to replace the guts in one toilet, which, I would have thought that the inspector would have caught, but he didn't. So hopefully there's nothing major that he missed. But so there's 10 days, so the inspection has to happen. And then there's another, like I said, with a condo, there are condo documents that the seller has to get. And then there's a 5-day period that they could walk away. They might read one thing in there that they don't like, and they could walk away without any penalties. So, and that's what happened with our first buyer. He saw a couple of things in there that he didn't like, and they're, standard condo stuff. It's not like he was going to go to a different condo building somewhere else, and they weren't going to be some sort of wording like that wasn't going to be in there. And as I mentioned, they were for special assessments and insurance, two different things that he didn't like. So he walked away. He got cold feet, and he probably used that as an excuse. So we put it back on the market last week, and again within maybe it was not last week, maybe it was the end of the week before, but last week we got an offer, which was actually more than the first guy offered, and so we did all the DocuSign stuff. And what DocuSign is, it's so you don't have to go and physically sign papers. Who wants to go see other people and touch pens and other things that, may or may not have COVID on them. And it's all well and good. But as I've mentioned back over the summer when we bought the house, not 100% accessible. Now, when I did the DocuSign initially for the agreement of sale, on the second time, I did most of them on my computer. And because I don't use VoiceOver on my computer, I use text to speech. It wouldn't work in the DocuSign stuff. So basically, I just went through and I tried to find all the spots that I needed to either sign or initial. And those spots are marked by, again, I reversed my screen. So to me, they're little blue things, but to anybody else who doesn't reverse their screen, it's yellow. So I would go through and try and find all those, and I always miss them. I always miss some if I don't miss a lot of them. So what I found out was faster was I would just click finish, and then it would take me, you missed this one or whatever. It says something. I don't know what it says. And then I would see where it is, and I would click it, and then boom, my initials are done. So we had done all that, but because the buyer there was something they had to do. They didn't do it on, I think it was the 3rd of December. They ended up doing it on the 4th of December. We had to change one date. So we had to do one more DocuSign. And when I wake up most days, the first thing I do is grab my phone, check email. And, it was around 8:30 and I check my email and I see this one DocuSign. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and do it on my phone because I want to get it done as quickly as possible to hopefully get it the way it works with us. I had to do it. And then once I finished and completed what I had to do, then Liz gets an email and then she finishes. And if I did it quick enough, she could do it before, she got into it with the kids at school. So, and then who knows when she could get to it, maybe not until lunchtime. And I didn't want to wait that long. I wanted them to have the documents because then the meter starts running on those different days, how many days for this. And sometimes they could run, simultaneously, both the inspector and the condo docs can run simultaneously. You don't have to wait for one to end and then the next begin, but they don't start until the day after everything is signed and sealed. I'm not going to say delivered because. So I thought, well, I'm going to try on my phone because now I had done it on my phone over the summer, but Liz was with me because it was, there were some COVID things that we had to sign off on before looking at different properties. And I couldn't completely do it on my phone. And so Liz had to help out. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it again because, again, I was upstairs in our bedroom. I didn't want to walk all the way down 2 flights of stairs to a very chilly Studio B, to do this on my computer. So I thought, well, this is going to be a good story for a podcast episode, so I'm going to try and do it. So the only thing I needed to do, just one spot, I needed to initial. Now, the one thing is I could read it using VoiceOver on my phone. I could read the document, but the place that I had to initial, once you click the initial, and again, if you're familiar with any kind of mobile or any kind of smartphone, that when you see, you just touch something once and that's like, clicking or tapping. That's one tap, boom, you're done. When you can't see, and you use VoiceOver, and I don't know how it works on the different Android models, but on an iPhone, you touch it and it says what it is. It doesn't automatically open something up or take you somewhere. And then if that's what you want, then you have to double tap. So in reality, you're doing 3 times the amount of taps when you want to place a call with or click on a link in an email or whatever. So I got to the spot that I needed to initial, and all it needed were my initials. Now, here's where it was not accessible. So I got to where I needed to. I double tapped on it. And, it's funny that this is not, I'm not doing video with my podcasting yet because I am doing the hand motions as I stand here in front of my computer. So I double tap on the thing and it brings up a box where I have to do my initials and do my signature. Well, it doesn't say in VoiceOver where that box is. I'm assuming it's down at the bottom. So I'm touching the bottom of my screen and it's just going clunk, 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 like it usually does when there's nothing there. And I'm like, what is going on? Where do I have to? So I keep, after a while of trying to use my finger to sign my name and write my initials, I thought, this isn't the right spot because it's not working. So I double tap the thing again and I go in there and now I'm dragging my finger all around my screen. Well, about a third of the way up from the empty space that I notice on the bottom, there's another empty space. And I thought, I wonder if this is where I have to sign. And so I try to sign with VoiceOver still enabled and again, not doing anything. So I thought, well, at least I know this is where I have to sign. Let me turn off VoiceOver and then take my finger and do my thing and, sign my name and sign my initials and boom, I'm done. So I do that. I have no idea what it looks like, of course. I know it was better than Shoeless Joe's X on the on the signature line. Then I turn VoiceOver back on, and I double tap that button again, and boom, it's done. I'm done. So again, if I had no sight, I would have never been able to do that without somebody helping me. Never would have happened because, I didn't know. I wouldn't have known, where to even try to sign. Once I shut off VoiceOver, I don't know what's happening on my screen. I don't know. And I thought, this is crazy that I can't do this on my own. What if it was just me and I didn't have Liz to read everything as she did with the documents the day before, when all the particulars, because I didn't do that on my phone. The other thing is with the DocuSign, and each document was a little bit different. For example, some will read most of what is on the screen. Some will read everything on the screen and then all the stuff that you don't see. For example, it might start to read the document and then it will say, row 3, column 1, spans 2 columns, and then it will say something. And then it will go to row 7, column 1, spans 2 columns, and then it will say what's on that line. And so to read through a document that has the interruptions of the row and column and spans and whatever, is very difficult to get through. Now, again, it didn't happen for all the documents, but I had my real estate agent send me a blank document because I wanted to show how it was. And the document that she sent over, fortunately was, or unfortunately, I guess, was one that it didn't, I don't think it said it in all of that document. In some of it did, but not all of it. So, when you have a document that's multiple pages long, it makes it so difficult to get through it and comprehend everything while you're trying to block out row blank, column blank, span blank. And I don't know that there's a better way. I do know there's got to be a better way for doing the DocuSign. Most things on an iPhone, when you touch something, it will tell you what you need to do. For example, you might touch something and it'll say, double tap to enable this, or double tap to go to the link. Or, it'll say, swipe up or down to, scroll or whatever. But this gave no indication of that. So, it was tough. It was difficult. And if I had to go through, if I knew it was going to be one of the documents where I had to do the whole thing, where there are, I don't know how many times I had to do my initials and signatures in the original agreement of sale, but, it might be all told, with signature and initials, might be 10 or 12 times. So I thought, this is not, easy for someone who can't see to do. And what kind of protection, the one thing that I learned at an early age, and I remember being with my dad at our attorney's office, he said, make sure you read everything. And I am clicking on that the day before on December 3rd. I'm clicking, and all I could think of was our attorney, Eddie Kassab, saying, just read everything. Don't sign anything without reading it. So I'm doing this, and then, I messaged Liz. I said, all right, you have the document, and please read it. And I said, you don't have to read the boilerplate stuff, the stuff that's already in there that we've read multiple times. I wanted her to make sure that anything that had some typewritten stuff in there, whether it was a name and address or a dollar amount or any other terms that may be added or taking something away, I wanted to make sure she saw those and read those and would tell me, hey, this is, does this sound right, or is this okay? The problem was she was at school, so she she couldn't do it at school. So she had to wait till she came home because, and then our real estate agent is saying, well, what's taking so long? I said, well, she's at work. I said, she can't go through it because she's, helping kids, do whatever, read whatever, write whatever. So I said, when she comes home, she'll do that first thing. And she did. And, like I said, that was like Thursday night. And then Friday, we had to do the initials because of the day difference, because they didn't get back to us. I mean, it wasn't anything that we did. It was something that, because we had sent the documents over at around 6:30 or so, they didn't come back in and actually act on them until the next day. So we had to do all that. So it's just frustrating. As I said, blind folks want to live as independently as possible. And when something is not enabled or 100% accessible, it makes it so they can, and so we can't. And it's just frustrating. And I don't know, it seems like we're always fighting for something, whether it's the new COVID legislation that's, that the House and Senate are taking up, where there is talk of shielding businesses from lawsuits. Part of that is so they could suspend some of the ADA provisions, which, as a business owner, I get that you would want to do that because it makes it difficult. And, everybody knows how difficult things are today with business and how so many are hanging on by a thread at this point. But, if only a drive-through is open and I'm hungry and I want to walk over there and get some food, but I can't because it's a drive-through and I don't drive anything, and people wouldn't want me to drive anything, that's not 100% fair either, is it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get it. And I've talked about it before. So I'd like to know what you think about that. Let me know, 646-926-6350, and leave your thoughts. And you could also leave other comments about the show or about ideas for upcoming episodes. Again, area code 646-926-6350. You could also email me at ican'tseeyouPodcast@gmail.com and let me know what you got to say. One last thing before I get going, and it's kind of funny. It's a funny story that one day last week, every morning when Liz gets up, she makes my oatmeal that I then reheat when I wake up. And depending on Jacob's schedule, that determines when I get up and get out of bed. Most days, because Jane works starting at 9, I get up around 8:30. I usually don't get out of bed until 9 once I know Jane is done in the bathroom, because I got nothing, unless I've got something planned, I'm just coming downstairs to do work on the computer. So last week, one day, Liz is making the oatmeal and the timer goes off, and she was upstairs or, doing something else. And Jacob happened to be in the kitchen. He was going in last week at 7 or 7, I guess 7. He was doing at 7 or maybe 7:30, whatever it was. So he was in the kitchen. It's the steel cut oatmeal, so it takes like an hour to cook. So Jacob hears the timer go off with the A lady. And so he stopped the timer, and then he goes to the stove to shut the burner off. Well, our stove, the burners, you only turn them one way. You turn them counterclockwise. And Liz cooks it on near the lowest setting. So it's basically pointed at 3 o'clock. But to shut it off, you've got to go clockwise to get to 12 o'clock. But he didn't know that because since we moved here, he hasn't made anything. And at the old house, the burners, which in that house were electric, you could turn it either way. It didn't matter. So he gets it to 3 o'clock and it's not moving. So he, of course, forces it. And he breaks the knob. So I wake up, like I said, around 8:30, and I get a call from Liz within, I don't know, 20 minutes of that. And she said, Jacob broke the knob on the stove. And so the stove, the fire is, it's still burning. Nothing's on it, so just be careful. I'll order a new knob. I said, okay. And I get up to get in the shower, and Jane was coming out of her office, and I said, just be careful when you go downstairs. I asked her if Liz had texted her and told her. She said no, and so she said, oh, I got to go look. So she goes downstairs, and she's like, oh my God, so there's a little fire burning. I said, yeah, I know. It's the burner is on. And so I get in the shower, and I'm in the shower, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how are we going to shut this off? I guess it was Friday. We can't let this thing go the whole week or the whole weekend without having a knob. And Liz had checked at Lowe's and Home Depot. Neither of them had it. She ended up ordering it from Amazon, and we got it. I don't remember if we got it Sunday or Monday. And I am thinking as I'm in the shower, and let me tell you, if I could take a 3-hour-long shower with hot water, I could solve a lot of problems. Because I, for whatever reason, I don't know if there's no distractions. I don't know just for me, the best place where, if I could have a computer in there to, write some notes down would be outstanding. So I'm in there, I'm thinking, man, I've got to figure out a way to shut that burner off. We can't leave it burning all weekend. And I'm thinking, I guess Liz tried this. I mean, that would be the easiest. I mean, it couldn't be that easy, could it? I am not the mechanical one in this family. I am the maintenance guy. I take out the trash. I'll clean the counters. I wash the dishes. I'll sweep up, whatever. That's what I do. Something needs to get put together. Liz does it. Shelving needs to go up. Liz does it. Now, I will tell you when we put up some shelves in Jane's room that our stud finder wasn't working great. So she asked me if I would go through and mark where the studs were, which I did. And we ended up getting a new stud finder because she had gone into the wall where I had said, but we marked it with painter's tape, and painter's tape is like 2 inches wide. So, she missed wide right. Kind of like Zerline did. Yeah, actually, he missed wide left on those 3 kicks. So Liz is the mechanical one. And again, I don't know that she was mechanical when she was a kid, but I am not mechanical. I cannot do most things, and it has nothing to do with my vision. I'm just not. So I'm sitting there and I'm really worried. I get out of the shower, I get dressed, I go downstairs, I feel the knob, or it's basically like a half moon shape where the knob fits on. And I'm like, well, what if I just turn it this way? And I'm like, you're kidding. I turned it off. Just like that. Boom, done. And so I texted Liz. I said, you did try to turn it, right? And she said, yeah, I couldn't move it. I said, did you turn it clockwise like you would the knob? She's like, yeah, I couldn't move it. I don't know what special powers I had to shut that off. And when she came home, she said, yeah, I couldn't move it. I said, you can still use the burner. We don't even need the knob. Now, of course, she had already ordered the knob, which was fine, and it's already on there. But it was just funny. It just made me laugh, again, because I am not mechanical. And again, it has really nothing to do with my vision. And that's, just like in the general population. Some people are mechanical, some people are not. Blind folks, some people are mechanical, some people are not. And, it just made me laugh when I did that. So I thought I'd share that story with you. That is all I have for today's episode 103 of the I Can't See You podcast. Please remember to support the White Cane Coffee Company, ican'tseeyou.com/coffee, and go over there and buy some coffee from them. It will not only help them out, that is the affiliate link for the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind. So again, ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. And that would be greatly appreciated by both organizations, I'm sure. And I really do appreciate you listening to episode 103 of the I Can't See You podcast. Please continue to stay safe. Wash your hands, wear your masks, whether you think it's helping or not. Makes other people feel good not seeing somebody barefaced walking down the street which is, of course, is a big change from, if you think back a year ago, if you saw somebody in a mask, you'd think he's going into the bank to rob it. But again, try and stay safe, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Bench.